Bull Malik sat in the plaintiff's chair like a man waiting for applause. His back rested comfortably against polished leather, his custom suit perfectly pressed, expensive enough to remind anyone watching that he did not belong among ordinary people. He smiled easily, lazily, the way men smile when they believe the ending has already been written in their favor. Beside him, lawyer Javon flipped through documents with practiced calm, the two of them sharing quiet chuckles as their eyes drifted to the empty space beside Tasia's chair. Malik's confidence came from certainty. He had engineered this moment carefully. Over months, he had stripped Tasia of her access, her allies, her money, her voice. The company she once ran with authority was now paper-thin in her hands, its power quietly transferred into accounts he controlled. What remained of her public image had been reduced to pity. In Malik's mind, she was already defeated. Court was nothing more than ceremony. He tapped his fingers against the table, the soft rhythm echoing through the courtroom. "She's late," he murmured, lips curling into a smug half-smile. Or maybe she finally realized it's cheaper to quit. Javon did not look up. He traced the edge of his briefcase, expression unreadable. In legal circles, they called him ruthless, the kind of attorney who never lost because he never fought fair. Malik trusted him because Javon never hesitated to do what others would not. "It doesn't matter if she shows," Javon replied evenly. "The emergency motion went through last week. Joint assets are frozen. No legal representation means she walks away with whatever we allow." Malik's eyes never left the courtroom door. "She won't need a lawyer," he said softly, "not when I'm finished with her." Across the aisle sat Tasia. She was already there. Seated alone in her wheelchair, she looked small beneath the harsh courtroom lights. Her hands rested neatly in her lap, fingers clenched just tightly enough for her knuckles to pale. Her gaze stayed lowered, lashes still, face carefully blank. To anyone watching, she appeared fragile, diminished, a woman crushed by years of pressure she could no longer stand against. That was exactly how Malik wanted her seen. He glanced at her and chuckled under his breath. "Look at her," he said, louder this time, just enough for the few spectators to hear. "It's sad, really, like watching a deer freeze in front of headlights." Javon shifted slightly. "Focus," he warned. "Judge Henderson doesn't tolerate theatrics. Let's end this clean. I have a lunch reservation." Malik leaned back further, spreading his hands confidently. "By 1 o'clock, I'll be free. She'll be hunting for a studio apartment, and I'll have everything. Her money, her company, her future." The air inside courtroom 304 felt stale, heavy with old paper and disinfectant. To Malik, it smelled like victory. He adjusted his cuffs, glanced at his watch, and exhaled sharply, the sound filled with contempt. "She's late," he muttered again, savoring the words. The courtroom doors creaked open. Tasia rolled in slowly, deliberately, the quiet hum of the wheelchair cutting through the room. Conversations died instantly. Malik watched her entrance with detached amusement, his confidence unshaken. To him, this was the final confirmation. She looked exactly how he wanted her to look. Broken. She guided the chair herself, movements controlled, posture upright despite the metal frame beneath her. When she reached her seat, she did not look at Malik. She did not look at anyone. Her silence spoke louder than words ever could. What Malik did not see was calculation. Behind the stillness, her mind moved relentlessly. Every insult she had swallowed, every document she had signed under pressure, every threat whispered behind closed doors had sharpened her focus. The wheelchair was not weakness, it was armor. Silence was not surrender, it was strategy. Malik studied her more closely, and for a brief moment something unsettled him. She seemed smaller, yes, but there was a tension in her stillness he could not name. The flicker passed quickly. He dismissed it. The courtroom buzzed softly as spectators leaned forward. Malik shifted in his seat, irritation creeping in without warning. The air felt heavier than it should have. He straightened his jacket, jaw tightening. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Tasia adjusted her posture in the wheelchair, shoulders straightening, chin lifting just slightly. When she raised her eyes, they locked on to Malik's. Years of cruelty sat behind that gaze, years of silence, years of waiting. Malik looked away first. He told himself it meant nothing. As proceedings began, Malik maintained his performance. He leaned forward at the right moments, whispered to Javon when it suited him, smiled when the judge acknowledged his filings. He spoke with practiced superiority, his words dripping with certainty as he painted Tasia as incapable, unfit, unstable. "You're nothing but a shell," he sneered at one point, voice sharp enough to cut. "A burden pretending to be strong." Tasia did not respond. Her stillness infuriated him. Each insult landed harder than the last, designed not just to win the case, but to erase her entirely. He wanted her to break in front of everyone. He wanted proof that she was finished. Instead, she waited. Javon sat quietly beside Malik, hands folded, eyes on the papers. But something had changed. The confidence Malik felt from him before was thinning. Javon's jaw tightened at Malik's cruelty, his fingers stilled. The plan was working, but the cost felt heavier than before. Then the courtroom door opened again. Brother Tariq stepped inside. The shift was immediate. He did not rush, he did not hesitate. His presence filled the room with quiet authority. Malik stiffened, eyes narrowing. "What is he doing here?" he whispered sharply. Javon did not answer. Tariq's gaze swept the room once before settling briefly on Tasia. She met his eyes just for a moment and nodded almost imperceptibly. Malik missed it, but Javon did not. Tariq took a seat, calm and unreadable, his presence hanging over the courtroom like an approaching storm. Malik leaned back, forcing a smile he no longer felt. He told himself this was still his game. He had no idea the first crack had already formed. Bull Malik still sat with the posture of a man in control, shoulders squared, chin lifted, fingers resting confidently on the polished table. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, something had shifted. The certainty he carried so effortlessly only minutes ago had begun to thin, not enough to alarm him, but enough to irritate him. It felt like an itch beneath expensive fabric, subtle, persistent, impossible to ignore once noticed. Across the room, Tasia remained silent. Her stillness was no longer passive, it pressed against the space between them. Malik sensed it without understanding why. He told himself it was nerves, that courtrooms did this to people, made the air feel heavier, made time stretch. He adjusted his cuffs again, a habitual gesture meant to ground him. The judge continued reviewing filings. Papers rustled, a clerk cleared their throat. Normal sounds, normal process. Yet Malik's attention drifted, pulled again and again toward Tasia. She sat upright in the wheelchair, eyes forward now, no longer downcast. Her hands rested calmly, no tremor, no tension. The image unsettled him. This was not how broken people behaved. This was composure, discipline, waiting. He leaned toward lawyer Javon. "She's acting strange," he muttered. Javon did not respond immediately. His gaze was fixed ahead, jaw tight, eyes darker than before. Malik frowned. "I said she's acting strange." Javon glanced at him briefly. "Focus on the case." Malik straightened, irritation flashing across his face. He did not like being dismissed. He had paid too much, sacrificed too much, to feel uncertainty now. He forced a thin smile and turned back toward the judge as his attorney resumed speaking on procedural matters. Across the aisle, Brother Tariq shifted in his seat. The movement was small, deliberate, but it caught Javon's attention instantly. Tariq leaned back, arms folded, expression unreadable. The two men exchanged a look that lasted less than a second. Malik noticed it too late, only registering that something unspoken had passed between them. He leaned forward again. "Why is he here?" Malik whispered sharply. "You told me he was a contingency." "He is," Javon replied, voice low. "Then why does it feel like he's watching me?" Javon said nothing. That silence landed harder than any answer. The judge called for clarification on a filing related to asset control. Malik smirked again, confidence rushing back as Javon stood smoothly to respond. This was familiar territory. Numbers, documents, authority. Malik relaxed slightly as Javon explained how the accounts had been frozen, how Tasha had failed to secure independent representation, how control had already shifted legally. As Javon spoke, Malik watched Tasha closely. She did not react. No flinch, no tightening of the jaw, no widening of the eyes. Nothing. It was wrong. Most people reacted when they realized they were losing everything. They pleaded, they panicked, they interrupted. Tasha did none of that. She simply listened. Malik felt heat rise in his chest. When Javon finished, Malik leaned forward and spoke before anyone invited him to. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "this has been a long process. My wife has had every opportunity to protect herself. She chose not to. The court can clearly see she is unfit to continue managing corporate assets or making sound decisions." The words landed with calculated cruelty. Still, Tasha did not respond. Malik pressed harder. She sits there pretending to be incapable, yet refuses to acknowledge reality. This court should not reward manipulation. A murmur rippled through the spectators. The judge raised a hand. "Mr. Malik, you will direct comments through counsel." Malik nodded, satisfied he had made his point. He glanced at Tasha again, waiting for something, anything. She slowly lifted her gaze and met his. It was brief. It was devastating. There was no fear in her stare, no anger either. What Malik saw instead was clarity, the kind that comes from certainty, not hope. It unsettled him so deeply that he looked away first, his jaw tightening. Brother Tariq stood. The sound of his chair sliding back cut through the room like a blade. Conversation stopped. The judge looked up sharply. "Yes?" the judge asked. Tariq's voice was calm, measured. "Your Honor, before this proceeds any further, I believe there are matters the court needs to hear." Malik turned fully now, disbelief flashing across his face. "Sit down," he hissed. "This does not concern you." Tariq did not look at him. "It concerns everyone in this room," Tariq replied evenly. The judge studied him for a long moment. "State your connection to this case." "I was hired by Mr. Malik, not for legal work." The courtroom stiffened. Malik felt a pulse of alarm shoot through him. "That's enough," he snapped. "You're overstepping." "I was hired to watch her," Tariq continued, nodding toward Tasha, "to intimidate her, to make sure she stayed quiet." A collective intake of breath swept through the spectators. Malik half rose from his seat. "You're lying." Tariq finally turned to him, eyes cold. "You paid me to make sure she did not interfere with your plan." The judge leaned forward now. "Mr. Malik, you will remain seated." Malik's confidence fractured further. He shot a look at Tasha, expecting intervention, denial, control. Tasha did not move. Instead, he looked at the table. Tariq continued, voice steady. What Mr. Malik did not know was that he underestimated who he was dealing with. He turned toward Tasha, his tone shifting, softening just slightly. She was never as powerless as he believed. Malik laughed, sharp and hollow. "She's sitting in a wheelchair." Tasha placed her hands gently on the armrests. The movement was slow, deliberate. Malik froze. She did not stand, not yet, but the intent was unmistakable. Javon exhaled, a sound that carried more weight than any confession. The room felt tighter, smaller, as if the walls had edged closer. The judge spoke again, carefully now. "Mr. Javon, do you have anything to add to this?" All eyes turned. Malik stared at him, willing him to speak, to deny, to restore order. Javon remained seated for a moment longer, conflict written across his face. Then he slowly pushed his chair back. Malik's heart slammed hard against his ribs. "No," Malik whispered. "Sit down." Javon stood. The silence that followed was absolute. And in that silence, Bull Malik finally understood that whatever game he thought he was playing was no longer his to control. The realization did not arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, heavy and suffocating, as lawyer Javon remained standing, saying nothing, allowing the weight of anticipation to crush Malik's certainty. For the first time since the hearing began, Malik could not predict the next move. He had built his power on anticipation, on knowing how people folded, how systems bent, how fear worked. This silence did not obey him. When Javon finally spoke, his voice was steady, stripped of the arrogance that once made him dangerous. He confessed calmly, methodically, unraveling months of manipulation in plain language the court could not ignore. He admitted to falsified filings, coercion, asset freezes engineered to isolate Tasya, and legal intimidation designed to present her as incapable. Each sentence stripped Malik of another layer of protection. The courtroom listened, stunned, as the man once known for annihilating opponents dismantled his own client instead. Malik tried to interrupt, to shout, to reassert dominance, but every attempt was shut down. The judge warned him repeatedly. The gavel came down harder each time. Control was slipping fast, and Malik could feel it in his chest, tight and panicked, a sensation he had never allowed himself to experience. Then came the truth Malik had feared most. Javon revealed that Malik's plan had gone beyond legal sabotage. He admitted Malik had asked for something permanent, not death, but incapacitation, a staged accident, a controlled fall from power, enough damage to leave Tasya alive, but powerless. The courtroom reacted with disbelief, gasps rippling through the spectators as Malik's mask cracked completely. Malik denied it, of course. He always did. He accused Javon of betrayal, of conspiracy, of lies spun to save himself. But his words sounded desperate now, hollow, stripped of the authority they once carried. Every denial only tightened the noose. That was when Tasya moved. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her hands on the armrests of the wheelchair. The sound was barely audible, but the movement drew every eye. Malik froze, his breath catching as she pushed herself upward. Inch by inch, she stood. The gasp that followed was a collective, sharp, almost violent. The wheelchair rolled back, empty. Tasya stood on her own feet, steady, composed, unbroken. The illusion Malik had relied on collapsed in that single moment. There had been no accident, no permanent injury. The weakness he had mocked was a mask, carefully worn, patiently maintained. She spoke then, not with anger, but with clarity. She explained how she had allowed Malik to believe he had won, how she had endured humiliation and silence because she understood something he never had, that men like him only expose themselves when they think they are untouchable. The wheelchair had been her shield, his arrogance had been her weapon. Brother Tariq stepped forward next, confirming his role, not as Malik's enforcer, but as Tasya's brother. He revealed how Malik had unknowingly hired him to intimidate his own sister, how every move Malik believed was secret had been watched, documented, and prepared for this moment. Malik's face drained of color as the truth settled in, slow and irreversible. The doors of the courtroom opened again, and this time there was no denying the shift in power. Vivian entered with quiet authority, followed by the chief judge overseeing the case. The room fell silent as she took her place. Malik recognized her authority instantly, and fear finally broke through his arrogance completely. Vivian addressed the court with calm finality. She recounted Malik's pattern of manipulation, abuse, and control, not just against Tasya, but against everyone he believed weaker than himself. His pleas followed quickly, desperate and incoherent. He begged for mercy, for understanding, claiming he only wanted freedom, only wanted out. But mercy was no longer an option. The gavel fell. The sentence was life imprisonment, no appeal, no escape. The power Malik had spent his life building evaporated in seconds. Officers restrained him as he shouted, cursed, and pleaded, his voice cracking under the weight of consequences he never believed would reach him. Tasia did not watch him leave. She turned instead towards Vivian, meeting her mother's eyes with quiet strength. This victory was not about revenge, it was about survival, about reclaiming dignity, autonomy, and identity stolen piece by piece over years of control. As the courtroom emptied, Tasia walked out on her own. No wheelchair, no mask, no silence. Behind her lay the wreckage of a man who believed domination was strength. Ahead of her was freedom, earned not through force, but through patience, precision, and resolve. And Bull Malik, once certain he owned the ending, was left behind, exposed, powerless, and finally subject to the same system he spent his life exploiting.